welcome to NAPOD, where we provide NA speaker meetings and workshops in a podcast. We are an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us to be self-supporting by visiting napod.xyz, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 in the virtual basket. If you're also in AA or have friends that are, please tell them about our other podcast, Sobercast. Sobercast features AA speakers and workshops in the same format as NAPOD. We upload a new speaker every day, and it's easy to subscribe by searching for Sobercast, that's 2 words, on any podcast player app, or go to Sobercast.com. Enjoy the podcast, and thanks for listening.
Today is Sunday, the 12th of March, 2006, Sunday night speaker meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. Welcome to our second speaker, Albert.
All right, Albert. My name is Albert, and I'm an addict. I don't know. Thank you for asking me to speak at the last minute, because I didn't have to wait a whole week or however many months it would have been before, and have all those magnificent shares before I got here, and then give you the dried out version. This will be the top number 1 version I can give you, because it's not going to be edited by anything other than my mind, which might not end up being that great, because my mind edits things very well. I've been doing it since I was a little kid, and thank you for sharing. It was really good. I needed to hear it. Some of what you said, but not all of it, because I was trying to shut it out, because I didn't want to be honest. I don't want to get honest. I don't want to be sitting here doing this. I've been going through a lot of things different in my life right now, and to tell you the truth, I was like sitting here going, God is not funny. God is not funny. When I don't want to speak, I go to a speaker meeting where I'm going to sit down and I'm going to listen, and I'm going to be the one sitting down listening and not being the one speaking. And then what happens? I come in, sit down, and then I get asked to speak. So God is not funny. And in my story, I know, at the age of 5, I was told I need to be a man, and that my parents got divorced and they went their separate ways, and because I was the only man in the family, or the only male figure in the family, I had to kind of go around doing a little of this and a little of that, moving with these people and moving with those. And when they said I had to be a man, I think as a little kid I took it seriously. But I think when I first took it seriously, I think I took it like a little kid wanting to fulfill their parents' dreams and be a man that he thought, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for my parents. They want this from me, and I'm going to be a man. And then I took it beyond that, and became a man that couldn't be told, a child that couldn't be told what to do, a child that couldn't be reprimanded, a child that didn't care if I got spanked because I beat somebody up at school, a child that really wanted to be in the principal's office, because then he wouldn't have to be around the kids in class, and proceeded to irritate and frustrate every adult individual in my life, to the point of they wanted to get rid of me after they had me for a while, because they couldn't handle the situation that I brought to their lives. And I'm talking about aunts and uncles that had kids and didn't have to deal with their kids in this manner. I'm talking about grandparents that couldn't put up with me, but had to, because their kids couldn't raise their child the way they wanted to under their roof. So they were being placed in a situation, I was being placed in a situation where most of the time I wasn't wanted. And most of the time wasn't the child of the family. I was just an entity. I felt like a broom. I felt like a mop. I felt like a dishwashing machine. I felt like a utensil in the life of somebody else's house, and I was treated that way. So in order to be a man, I had to kind of like shut things off. And when I went to school, I shut things off completely, and I shut them down so bad that's why I fought with somebody. Because if somebody said something to me wrong, and I was standing in front of the mirror this morning shaving, and I told myself, you're nothing but a baby. You've been a baby your whole life. You're just a crybaby. And I was like finishing shaving. I said, where did that come from? And I had been watching a movie just a few minutes earlier, and I was sitting there watching this one little scene, and it made me cry. And then I stopped, and I got up, and I went to go shave and take a shower and get out of the house because I started to have a feeling about what was happening in that movie. And I've come to understand since I got clean that this is what happens to me. I watch movies and I go through emotions. I sit down in a meeting, I start sharing about myself, and I start going through these emotions. And at first when I got here, I didn't let those emotions out. I didn't know how to be that kind of a person. I held them in, and I looked at other people and go, what the fuck are they talking about? How could that guy do that? And some guy was crying in front of a whole group of people, and he had tattoos. He was 6'2". He was a biker. He had earrings. He had this leather jacket on. He was part of this gang, but he was standing there sobbing his eyes out in front of everybody, and I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand how that man could do this. And I really, in my head, was telling myself all the things that I was raised to know about a person that stands in front of somebody and cries, and that he's a sissy, he's a wuss, he does, and all of that shit that I was raised with. And I was thinking this of that individual. At the same time, I was wondering, how the fuck do you get to that place in yourself? You know, how do you get to that place to where you could cry in front of a bunch of individuals you don't even know half of them or 3/4 of them or 1/10 of them, but yet you can do that and let it out? Because I'd never been able to do what that man was doing right there in front of me. And I wanted to know so bad that when I got done with the end of the meeting, I asked my friend, who happened to have like 5 or 6 years more time clean than I did, how did that guy do that? And he goes, how did he do what? And he's all, how did he cry in front of everybody and not walk out and think he's a total fool, an idiot, a jerk, a fucking crybaby? And he told me he was letting out his true feelings. What do you mean? That's what I'm talking about. How does he do that? How do you do that as an individual? What do you have to do to get to that level? Where do you have to go? How many people do you have to shake their hands? How many people do you have to walk up to and say, give me some of what you got? And in order to get there, I didn't know. And I was working the steps, I thought. I was sharing about all the drugs that I had used. I was sharing about how I never stepped on my shit. I was sharing about all the people that I had in my life that I had mistreated. I was sharing about, all of the people in my life that I used to use. I was sharing about my parents and my aunts and my uncles that used to sell drugs and that I used to sell drugs to. And this person told me, after a meeting and being around here for a while, it was a woman. It was a good thing it was a woman that came up to me and told me this, that now you've been here for a while, Albert, now you need to start talking about recovery. You need to start raising your hand and sharing about recovery. And I literally balled up a fist, and I was going to just punch this woman. And she looks at me and she goes, I'm telling you this because I love you. And then my hand just went loose, and I was like, oh, what? You're just totally like dissing me right now, and you're telling me that you love me? Bullshit. And then the next thing out of her mouth, she said, you've been here long enough, maybe you should talk to your sponsor, ask them what recovery is about, and maybe you can start sharing about it, because you know what this is about now. And I really didn't. I've seen it around, I've watched it, and I've seen things that were going on, and I've heard some stuff that I kind of got. And I wanted to have some of what was being said. I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to be the guy that was standing with all the guys that were the in crowd and walking with all the girls and the hips looking cool customers that were going in and out. And I was still finding myself leaning up against the wall in the back of the room, standing there looking at everybody going, how come I can't do that? How come I can't do that? How come I don't get to do that? Why? And it was all about me not getting to do, have, or accept something that everybody else was getting. And including the hugs and the hellos and how are you doing? But I couldn't tell anybody that those were the things that I wanted. I could go outside and stand there and watch the other people that were smoking cigarettes and kind of just be there off to the side, not smoking cigarettes, because that got me out of the room, that got me out of the attention that everybody was watching me because the lights were on or whatever, and I needed a place to stand where I could be out of sight but in sight, and I was getting really frustrated with this way of being. It's the way I lived my life. It's the way I existed. I always was the center of attention without being the center of attention. I walked into a room and I commanded you to look at me by whatever it was that I did, including making this teacher afraid of me. And in the play field with all the kids, if if I couldn't play with you, then you weren't going to play with whatever you were playing with, because I would take it away and make you chase me till the end of the day, and then I'd give it back. And a lot of people wanted to beat me up, but they knew they couldn't, because they knew I would get them. And I lived my life like this. I didn't want, but I wanted. And I got here, and I didn't want, but I wanted. And I didn't understand how you guys did it, and I didn't understand what this program meant. You surrender, let go. Surrender. I never surrendered a damn thing in my life. I took everything that I got. I took it the way I wanted it, and I held on to it for as long as I could until I had to give it up. And whatever it was, I mean, I had things when I was out there using. I had things and I lost things, and I had more things and I lost them. And I always played it off like, oh, I could buy some more. Oh, I could get that. You know, I was driving down the freeway in the middle of the night with a revoked license. It had been revoked for a 5-year time period, and I was living in Malibu, and I had all these friends, supposed friends, that were always calling me up, let's go surfing, let's go partying, let's go do this, let's go do that, and I'm needing help. And in the middle of the night, I ran out of gas, and I don't have transportation to get my truck off of the side of the road. And I can't leave it there because I've got a revoked license, and if a cop pulls over on the side of the road and runs the plates on my truck and finds out that the owner of that truck has got a revoked license, that they could impound it, and then I have to go find out where it's at and then try and get it even though I don't have a license. And I'm driving around in a truck with a revoked license on PCH in Malibu up the county line, where there's only one way in and one way out. So there's cops pulling behind me, and there's rangers, but I'm still doing it because I'm an addict. I'm invincible. I will beat the system. And so what do? I go down to the nearest campsite there, and I get on the phone, and I call a couple of my friends. It's in the middle of the night. There's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and nobody wants to come and help me. And I'm sitting there talking to these people, and they're, oh, I can't. I'm going back to sleep. Dude, I'm going to call me in the morning, you know. And I'm threatening them over the phone, if they don't come and get me right now, this is it. When I see you in the morning, don't even look for me. They better start running and shit. And what happens, none of them will come. So I go back to the car, and I'm so pissed that I kick in the doors, I kick the windshield out, it starts to rain. I'm like smashing the shit out of my truck. I beat the living tar out of my truck. And I got inside, and I slept inside with the rain coming in, beating down because the windshield was no longer there. And then when I get up in the morning and I haven't been pulled over, and I go down to the gas station, hitchhike a ride, I get gas in my truck, and I pull into where I live, and everybody's going, what happened? Nothing happened. Nothing happened. I'll fix it. Nobody found out what happened to my truck that night, because I wasn't going to tell everybody that you got me upset, you made me feel bad, you weren't willing to help me, and it hurt me so bad that I abused myself in order to get your attention. And I wasn't going to let that happen. So instead, I let everybody wonder whatever they wondered and went on with life without ever saying a thing. And that's the way I dealt with life. I never told anybody anything. Literally. And I got here, somebody showed me how to talk. Somebody showed me that if I raise my hand and I open my mouth and I tell the truth, that the truth will come out whether I like it or not. Sometimes I don't want to say it, but it comes out, and I start saying it, and the next thing I know, it's really what I really mean. And what I really mean is helping me at the end of the meeting to walk out the door going, what the fuck was I saying? I can't believe I said that. And people are walking up to me after the meeting and giving me a hug and thanking me for sharing and telling me to keep coming back. And I'm like, what are these people? They're weird. Because I'm telling my truth. I'm being honest for the first time, and I'm letting it out. And for some reason or another, there's things that are going on inside of me that I don't understand, although I'm working the steps, although I'm talking to my sponsor, although I'm doing a 4-step, and I ain't telling this sucker everything. I'm just going to write down what I absolutely think he might need to hear in order to make me qualify for still being able to sit in this chair. And he comes to my house, and I do a 1st step with him, and he doesn't say anything to me. He doesn't say I'm a bad person. He doesn't say I'm a good person. He just tells me to keep coming back and that everything's going to be okay. And he tells me in the midst of all that, before he leaves the house, that he loves me and he wants nothing but the best for me. And I'm like, oh, shit. So I get onto my 6th step and I start writing all those character defects that some of us think that we don't have, and I know I didn't have any, and and it was through that 6th step, that 5th and that 6th and that 7th step that I realized that I have a lot of things about myself that I don't understand how to deal with, and I don't understand how to let them out, and I so hold on to those defects because they are so comfortable and they are such a safe place. They are so embedded within me that to let them out, it just like it takes an act of God. And that's why I sat here and said in the first place that God ain't funny. Because see, sometimes God has to get somebody to look over at me and say, would you speak for me tonight? So that I'll get up enough courage to start out by starting with a joke. And if you've ever heard me share or speak at a meeting, I always start with a joke, because I got to get this thing that's telling me not to tell the truth, that's telling me to tell them a big lie, that's telling me that they don't want to hear what you have to say, they just need to be entertained for an hour and a half and then they can go home. It's telling me everything I don't need to hear, that for the moment that I tell that joke and I start laughing, I let go. I let go enough to start telling the truth. And when I start telling the truth really starts setting me free, and I start telling more truths. And the more truth I tell you, the more honest I become with you, and the more honest I become with myself. By the end of the meeting, I'm feeling so much better that when I go home, I don't feel the way I did when I walked into this room. And it isn't because of all of the hugs and all of the thank you for sharing and all of that. What the truth of the matter is that I just cleansed my soul of my own self. The things that I've been holding on to, I needed to let go of. I just did it. And that's what's really given me that feeling. And sometimes I don't acknowledge that. Sometimes I think it's just the kudos and the pats on the backs. And somebody told me, one of my bosses one time told me, if you keep patting yourself on the back, you're going to throw your shoulder out. I said, well, sometimes some of us need it. Some of us need a pat on the back. But sometimes we, just like anything else, obsessive, compulsive, self-centered nature of this disease tells me I want more. It's never enough. Don't give it. It's either one side or the other, on or off. That's it. On or off. I don't know the middle. That is an uncomfortable place for me to be, is in the center portion of that. And not know, I want to run to one way or run to the other and turn it on or turn it off. That's it. I've been so messed up lately that I can't get out my front door. And it isn't because I haven't been writing steps, because I've been on a 4th step that's got to deal with self-pity, denial. Self-pity, it's just brutal. It's about finance, romance, self-pity, and depression. And I've been writing so hard on it that I've been caught up in all of my character defects, and I've been holding on to them so hard that I haven't allowed myself to tell myself that I'm doing good, that everything that I'm writing about will help me in the end, that there are assets to all of those defects. And it took me actually having to go and get a therapist to find that out. And that therapist told me that you beat yourself up. You're a really articulate guy. You really know a lot about yourself. And this program is telling you that you need to look at all this stuff. And while you're looking at it, you need to remember every day that it isn't who you are. Because that's what I tell myself, that all this stuff is who I am. That's what embedded in me. That's what I grew up. That's what I've been holding on to. And I've been holding on to it like this. And I haven't given myself a break and haven't given myself a moment to realize that I'm doing good things to myself and for others around me. And I've been going to a meeting every night this week, because in the process of writing this, I go to less and less meetings. I'll go to just the meeting that I have a commitment at, and just the area meeting that I have a commitment at, and just suffer through the rest of the month. And even in that meeting that I'm the secretary of, every once in a while I can't even make it there, and I'll call somebody and tell them that I'm not going to make it, if you could please take care of it for me. And I'm just trying to be honest with you right now, because this is what this program has given me, is the ability to want to be honest. I'm not telling you that I'm honest all day long, everywhere I go, and everything that I do, because that ain't true. I honestly wake up in the morning and start talking to myself And before I make it out the door, I can make the coffee, I can take a shower, I can shave my face, get dressed. Before I make it to the door, my head has talked me out of going out that door and going to work and being responsible today. Even though I know I'm late on my rent and Friday's the 10th, and that's actually beyond where my landlord will accept my having paid late. But yet, every day this week, I did it one more day, and I went through this whole thing. All right, if I do only 3 days, then all I have to do is borrow this much, and if I do only 2 days, then I can get this one, and I can pawn these tools, and I went through the whole week doing this. And then it comes Friday, and I haven't gone to work all week, and Thursday night I called another contractor up and asked him, hey, if you got any work tomorrow, let me know, so that and he didn't call me Thursday night before I went to the meeting, or after the meeting, or Friday morning before work started. So now another day fell through, and I'm sitting there with $40 in my checking account, and I have to have my rent. And I'm telling you, this disease is so good at wanting to get me out of these rooms and back on the street and doing what I do, that I will talk myself all day long to do all those things, and the only way I can shut it off is to go to sleep. Because if I'm asleep, I don't hear it. If I'm asleep, I'm not conniving. If I'm asleep, I'm not fixing. If I'm not fixing, then I'm not dealing with the situation today either. And the fact of the matter is that I had to make some calls that I didn't want to make. I had to call my dad. And I haven't asked my dad for help since 4 years before I stopped using, because that's the last time I had talked to him and asked him for help that's the last time I asked him for help. And I haven't done, and that was harder than actually having to get up and go to work. If I'd have thought about it then, I probably would have went to work a week ago. Literally. Because to call him and tell him what I've been going through and what I've been putting myself through, knowing in my head that I should be better than this, I should be doing way better. I should have my contractor's license and be on my own business and be doing all these things, and I should be calling him to tell him, hey, I got some extra cash, Robert. Do you need any money? Are you guys tight? Are you need help with my mom's surgery? And instead, I'm on the other side of it, calling him to let him know that I've been doing this behavior and acting out on that behavior, and I can't do it, and it was hard. But I did it. I called him up and I told him the situation. I told him the truth. I didn't lie to him. I told him exactly what was happening with me. And he said, sure. He said, come over to the house later on and I'll get you some money. And then I got to his house later on that day, and he wanted to give me more money and he sat down and he started telling me all this stuff about, we make mistakes. We get grown up, and maybe we never learned how to do this, and maybe we never learned how to do that. And I'm expecting the lecture from hell, the one that tells you how stupid you are, the one that tells you what a little baby you're acting like, the one that tells you how you're not worthy. And I'm only doing this because you're your mother's son, and you're not related to me, so I shouldn't even have to do this because you're just a piece of shit and that's all you've been your whole life. And that wasn't what I got. Instead, he couldn't stop patting me on the back for being here in this program. He couldn't stop patting me on the back for having the amount of time clean I have. And he couldn't stop patting me on the back for making mistakes that every person in the world makes and don't know how to deal with it. But if I just asked for help, I could have made it through without having to do it. But I'm an independent person. Remember that 5-year-old little man? I'm still it. I'm still that 5-year-old little man trying to make it out of the fucking house, trying to get what he wants, trying to grow up and become a real man. And I just don't know how to ask for help all the time. At the right time. When I need it, not after it's passed, not when it's gone beyond, and not when I have to look back and look at all of the devastation I just created in the last 10 years. And I'm grateful for this program. I'm grateful for God. I do have a power greater than myself that is better and beyond anything that I could ever be. Because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be sitting here, I wouldn't be talking to you, and I wouldn't be sharing. I wouldn't be honest, and I would be out using, and I know where I would have been. I would be dead. I know. I was up for 9 days, 10 nights, and believe me, where I was going to from that point and that night, I didn't get up out of that room and leave that house, I was going to be dead. And I already remember, and I already know that for a fact, and I try and remember that every time. Every time I think in my head that I need to leave and go, and no longer be a part of this program, no longer be a member of the Narcotics Anonymous program that I have learned to love and care for, and know that loves me back. But sometimes my disease don't want me to believe that. Thank you for letting me share.
Please help me to thank our speakers, Jenny.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please help us improve our ranking so others can find us by putting a review on Stitcher, iTunes, or your favorite podcast index. NAPOD is ad-free thanks to the folks supporting the show with $1 or more per month. If you enjoy listening, you can join them by going to napod.xyz and looking for the donate link. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.